Welcome to my full-time job. I'm Juniper and I'm a professional gardener here in South Texas, and today I'm going to do an August garden tour. This August garden tour is about 20 miles southwest of the Houston area. It's called the West Wall Garden. It's about 1,500 square feet, going on 5 years old now, so let's get started. The wall that I'm naming this garden after is this brick wall that starts on the south end of the property here, which this is the south wall here. This is the west wall, and it runs all the way in that direction to what is the north side of the property. And I'm going to be starting this tour on the south end. Now, this corner that I'm starting in is somewhat of a wild corner, and it's had a lot of drama over the last few years, so I haven't been able to stay on top of the maintenance, because as soon as I get almost caught up, something else happens and kind of takes me away from it. But it is got some really big plants in it, like this rain of gold here. If you are wondering how big they could get, you can see here I'm 5'4", and this bush with the yellow flowers is towering over me easily. And then there is a citrus that's kind of growing up through it. The citrus died in a freeze several years ago, and we've let it come back from the graft just to use as a host plant for the swallowtail butterflies. They really seem to like it. Along the pathway in this garden here, there is a lot of the creeping juniper. Now, this was all planted before I got here, and this juniper gets very unhappy in the summertime around these stones because the temperature in the soil gets around 120 degrees, which is extremely hot for any plant, but especially these junipers. They do not like the hot temperatures at all. So what I've done is I allow these cosmos, these are the sulfur dwarf cosmos, I allow them to reseed themselves each year, and I let them come up throughout the juniper just to help cast a little bit of shade to keep the temperature low. It's not a perfect solution, but it's better than nothing, and that's really all I can offer them, because the clients really want the junipers here, and you know, they look fine most of the year, but during the hottest months like June, July, and August, they really start to look withered and tired, and sometimes kind of start to die off around the stones. So this is just what I came up with, and you know, it looks pretty, and pollinators really enjoy it. So so far this is what's been working the past couple years to keep them from suffering so much. The outer edge of this west wall garden on this south end corner is a persimmon tree, and I believe it is the chocolate variety, and this is the healthiest year we've ever had this tree. The first couple years the owner was really excited and wanted to keep the fruit on the tree, and I can't tell you how much the tree declined every time it went to fruit, and we almost lost it a couple times. So finally was able to convince them that we can't leave all the fruit on the tree as much as they want it. After the tree started withering away, I think I took it down to about 3 fruits, and it took an entire year for it to recover from that. And there was also an incident where the sprinklers got turned off for a couple weeks in the middle of summer. And that's a whole nother level of devastation that I'll save for another video. But anyway, this tree did eventually recover, and this year it had probably 300 fruits on it, and I took all of them off at the very beginning, except for about 15 or so. And you can see they are doing great, and the tree is doing great. There's no suffering going on here. This branch was laying towards the ground, so I've got it propped up on another branch. But this is the healthiest this tree's ever looked during the fruiting phase. Now, just to the side and below this persimmon tree is a beautyberry that has been cut back aggressively this year because this climbing rose on the trellis needed some serious pruning, and they were both just kind of growing into each other, and neither one of them had adequate space for each other. So now they've both been reined in, and they're kind of sparse right now, but they'll fill in accordingly. I'm not sure we're going to keep this here. I'm definitely going to let it stay here for the rest of this year so the berries can feed the birds that are used to having it here. But I'm thinking it's really outgrown this corner, and there's a lot of other beauty berries in this garden that have spawned off of this one, so there's plenty to go around to where getting rid of this one is not going to hurt anything, and it'll help the rose in the long run. Also, along the ground here is some native Texas rock rose, and that has also been taken over by this beautyberry that would be allowed to fill in again better without it there. So that's kind of what we're hoping for within the year to come, but I can't say for sure how that's going to play out, but that sounds like the best plan that I've come up with so far that we may do. The other annuals in this bed below it are just some self-seeding, or just some random self-seeding flowers like the cosmos. I did put one of the coneflowers that I transplanted last winter in this bed, And there's some, this is the Texas rock rose right here. This one's not blooming, but there are some other plants blooming that I'll show in a minute. And then there's a dwarf zinnia, and this is fall aster here, not in bloom, but that's a transplant from another aster somewhere else in the yard. And this is gurura, and this is a volunteer gurura. So I've been letting it go there. And then there's some zinnias and cosmos, again, sprinkled throughout that path with the juniper. Okay, so I just found a bunch of leaves in my hair. I don't know how long they've been there, but just, you know, you're gonna see me with dirt and bugs and leaves on me throughout these videos, and I just want you to know I don't care. It just comes with the territory. This little tree-shaped shrub is a variegated privet, and it's, I want to say 5 or 6 years old. It was just a little bush when I started here, and I had never seen the plans of the person who installed this landscape to know what their intentions were. But the only way I could get everything to grow together in harmony was to start shaping the shrubs into trees so the plants that were nearby didn't get taken over. This is a tree that unfortunately I can't tell you the name of it. I've been trying to ID it for now 3 years. I've been trying to propagate it as well. It is a very pretty tree that in the winter, I want to say late fall and winter, it has pink blooms all over the branches. It's just the prettiest fairy tale looking tree you could have. Kind of looks like cherry blossoms. It doesn't make any fruit. Again, I don't know what it is. I've been trying to ID it, and it's come up so many different things. I don't even want to mislead anybody. But maybe one day I will do a video if I ever get, if I'm ever fortunate enough to find out what this tree is. I will do a video just on this tree, and I'll be really happy to share that. Anybody who does know what this tree is, I'm going to show a picture of it right now. If you're familiar with this and know 100% what this is, please put it in the comments below and let me know, because I would love to know more about it. It's really rare. I've never seen it anywhere before for sale, and it's really hard to ID, but it seems to do well in our zone, so I can't complain about it. I would just like to know what it is. Now, right in front of this tree are some more of the orange sulfur cosmos, and there's also some lemon ones mixed in there. And again, these are the dwarf cosmos. There's some blue sage growing up around here and back there. This is, or should I say was, a pink butterfly bush. And again, it has been the victim of another sprinkler incident. I did some heavy pruning and cleaned out around it, and right after that, the sprinklers got turned off by a contractor and were left off for over a week, and this just really got hit hard. The timing couldn't have been worse for this plant. So now it's just basically in recovery mode. I don't know if it's going to come back and bloom or not, but that's what this is / was, a pink butterfly bush. Now, just past that sorry looking butterfly bush is some more of the blue sage, and then in front of this edge right here is some pink peach drift roses. I would say that's about 7 or 8 foot spread of them. Behind that is a Texas sage, and this is a sunshine ligustrum that's been pruned into a tree for the last several years. Right past the sunshine ligustrum is a plum tree, and the type is on there, and it just bared fruit for the first time this year, but the birds got to them before we did. And this is called Flavor Delight Aprum. I don't know if that's the name, but yeah, I think that's what it says. It's really worn off, and I don't have my glasses on, so sorry, I can't tell you exactly. But anyway, like I said, this is the first year it put out some fruit, and the birds got to them before we did. This is the Texas sage. And right in front down here is some autumn sage that is really, really getting tired out. It has been blooming since early spring. It was one of the first bloomers, I think. So it's due for a good trimming and maybe a little feeding or so. It's just so burnt from being on this edge. Even though it is a Texas native, it can benefit from occasional pruning and some good watering. So I'll be tending to that. Hopefully in one of my upcoming visits, I can give it some personalized attention. Right here is a camellia shrub that, again, I've cleared out the base to make sure it has more of a trunk shape, just so irrigation can work. And in front of this camellia bush and behind this autumn sage is periwinkles, and all of these periwinkles are volunteers that have self-seeded the past several years. I have not planted any periwinkles in this garden in years. This is the camellia plant, and here is another variegated privet pruned into a tree. And then just below that are some zinnias, that self-seeded from last year, mixed in with some cosmos. And yes, those are kale that were left over from the winter that seem to be doing fine. This here is Texas tarragon. It is an herb and it is another native, and it may have another name to it, maybe Mexican marigold. I'm not sure. I have heard it called so many different things, but it's got a really nice licoricey scent to it. It's growing in a lot of the gardens that I'm in, and it's pretty hard to keep within its boundaries. I have to divide it and take it back every year now at this size because the plant's so mature. So if you are thinking about growing this, make sure you have enough room for it, or that you're going to harvest enough all the time to cook with it so it stays a compact shape, because it will take over anything within a 3-foot direction all the way around. Just past the Texas tarragon is a rhododendron or azalea. Honestly, I don't know the difference, but this one is doing much better now that it's getting full sun. So I feel like if it is an azalea, it's in one of those categories that can handle the full sun, because that sunshine ligustrum used to consume this whole place just like the variegated privet, but everything here was getting shaded out and the blooms were getting less and less each year. So I got permission to take the shrubs out completely if I wanted to, and then I thought maybe I'll just let them start over every spring and we won't have that issue. So I'm going to try that for a year and see how it is. So I cut them down to the ground and I'm basically letting them start over, and I might just do that every spring, so that way there's something here in the winter, evergreen, but I cut it back in the spring as everything else is starting to come in. They are a lot of maintenance, no matter where they are. They are really, they're the highest maintenance shrub in all of this garden, hands down, no doubt, no comparison. They need to be pruned more than any other shrub. Right in front of the sunshine ligustrum is some fall aster, not in bloom yet. And then this is the new gold lantana, which is a trailing lantana planted right here. And it's nestled nicely with this Texas tarragon and the rhododendron. So just past the sunshine ligustrum is another rhododendron. This is a rose of Sharon. And this right here is another butterfly bush, and it's a purple one that got exposed to the same kind of conditions as the pink one, but it bounced back a little better. But it was a really harsh hit when the sprinklers got left off for that week. It took quite the dive, but again, it's just recovering. But this rose of Sharon is just now coming into bloom. It's the pretty bluish color. And you might be wondering, what is this atrocious, hideous vine behind me? So the story of this hideous vine, this is Star Jasmine, my least favorite vine that people love to grow. And I will say, I didn't do this on purpose. It may sound like I did it on purpose because I hate this vine so much, but I had no option but to cut it back this hard, because for the last several years, we had been growing on top of the fence and believed the neighbors behind us to be okay with it. And it turns out they're not. And I came to work one day and they had thrown it all back over, and it was a nightmare. So I had to rein it in on a last minute notice. And when that happened, a lot of the leaves that had not been exposed to sunlight became exposed to sunlight in a very short period of time. So that's one reason for the leaf scorching. The other reason is dehydration. Another aspect to that is the loss of moisture that the plant had in it. By all the pruning cuts, moisture evaporated, and so the plant has dried out a little. I'm not worried about it. It is going to bounce back, and I'm not happy to say that. I wish it wouldn't. However, I have no concerns that this plant's going to recover just fine and bounce back. It's only been a couple days since I did this. And on the same day I did this, there's actually another plant that I had to rein in from getting taken over from something, and it scorched the same way. So I'll get to that one in a minute. In front of this rose of Sharon and butterfly bush is some angelonia, some other dwarf cosmos that are coming up on their own from previous year's seeds. These are some purple coneflowers just finishing up in bloom. And behind me, there's 2 more sunshine ligustrums that I cut level to the ground at the end of spring. Oh, and I almost forgot. This is a dwarf shrimp cocktail plant. Right here, this is a dwarf shrimp cocktail plant. I almost forgot that. Everything from this ligustrum all the way to the other side of the jasmine is what got exposed to a very aggressive pruning just a few days ago. So that's why this is probably the most hideous area of the garden for that reason. And sorry, but August is August, and it is not a good time to do this type of pruning. But again, the situation presented itself to where I just needed to take action. And when taking that action, of course, those vines were all just growing around all these other shrubs in the area. So those had to be cut back as well so I could bring them back into a better uniform shape, or somewhat uniform. We don't need it manicured here. You know, in this garden, we're not going for a super manicured look, but we do want things to look balanced and harmonious. So this is a loropetalum, and when it puts out the new growth, it's going to be that bright purple color that really brightens up this whole area and looks so pretty. And if this were showing its bright purple new growth right now, you wouldn't even notice this hideous jasmine behind me. That's how striking the new growth is on the loropetalums. I just love them. And this is a Texas sage. This was engulfed completely in the jasmine. Texas sage does not like shade. So anywhere that it's too shady, it'll just drop its leaves and you'll be left with these sticks. The good news is Texas sage is very forgiving. If I wanted to cut this down to a stump, it would return. There's a 90% chance it would return. And I may end up doing that. I haven't decided yet. But there's a couple in this garden that I have done that with that hopefully I can share in another video. But just to let you know, this is not staying like this. I just haven't decided which way to go yet. But this is some more fall aster. And then in front of the fall aster is plumbago. And then behind the plumbago is some more of the Texas tarragon. So we've got the blue plumbago, the fall aster, the loropetalum, and the Texas tarragon. And then up throughout the fall aster is some zinnias that naturalized. Oh, I had this one propped up. There I go, messing it up. Okay, here is another sunshine ligustrum, and right in front of this sunshine ligustrum is a camellia. Now, this sunshine ligustrum was meeting that star jasmine, and they had grown together, and there was a big mound of chaotic mess here. And so to rein everything in and create boundaries for each plant to hopefully eventually have its own space, I had to clear out right here. And this camellia is scorched because of that step. Now, I did not kill it, and I know if somebody else, you know, saw this in the garden, they probably think something's wrong with the bush, or they killed it, or something's eating the bush, or whatever. But what's happened here is all of these leaves were used to being in the shade, and then I so rudely came and cut their shade away, and they were not ready for the sun. They will never turn back green again. So the solution to this is patience. Just be patient. I could go in and cut all these off and then wait for the new growth to emerge. And the new growth that would emerge would have the adequate amount of the plant's sunscreen to prevent it from scorching. But since these leaves grew while in the shade, they were lacking that sunscreen. And the only way to prevent this type of reaction from a plant when going from being in shade to sun is a process called acclimation, which hopefully I can explain in an upcoming video, but it's definitely a video of its own to acclimate a plant and transition it from shade to sun. So this plant did not get the proper acclimation period and therefore has leaf scorch. My solution is patience. I'm going to wait until it starts putting out new growth before I start pulling off these leaves. If I pull them off now, I just think it'll be a bigger eyesore than leaving them there. I am going to make sure it gets a really good soaking though, because it could also be losing more water than it's used to because of the heat that is hitting the ground around it that used to be in the shade. So there's two things there that could be making this plant uncomfortable that I need to take into consideration to help it recover better. These are some cosmos that they are taking forever to bloom. I don't know what's taking so long. Behind it is some salvia, white salvia that I transplanted from another plant in the garden, and it is also taken forever to bloom. But again, there was a lot of shade coming off of this wall behind me, and that could have something to do with it, to where hopefully things will be on their way to bloom now. Go. So this whole edge right here is filled with the blue plumbago, fills this whole edge. And then right in front of the blue plumbago is some dwarf zinnias, this pink color. This is the first year I've grown this pink color, and I'm happy with how they're turned out. They're really pretty. Behind the zinnias is a bunch of Mexican heather. The Mexican heather joins another patch of drift roses. This patch is about a 10 by 10 area, and it consists of about 5 plants planted together. Here is another variegated privet that's been pruned into a small tree, right next to another ligustrum that's also been pruned into a small tree. This is a sunshine ligustrum, and this is a variegated privet. Both have been pruned into small trees. Right below this privet is a loropetalum, and I need to rein in the canopy of this privet so the loropetalum can start doing its thing, because right now it's just too overtaken. And again, this is in such a confined spot, much of this garden was overplanted. So I kind of have to make things up as I go over where a plant's particular boundaries are, because you know, every time I turn around, it seems like every other season something else exceeds the boundary that I had presumed it may have. So, or it's growing faster than I imagined. But as the garden matures, so does the maintenance. Oh, and below all of this somehow is another Texas sage. But again, unless all this is cleared out, this is just going to wither away. It's very weak feeling. Right in front of this loropetalum is some Texas rock rose, and this is a native right here. This is a really pretty native. It grows very well here with very little care. It's in the hibiscus family, and it will fill in any area you allow it to. I had to rein it in a little bit last year because it had gotten very aggressive, taking over other plants, and then it also got a powdery mildew late in the summer that was really gross to deal with. So, but I still recommend growing it. Just don't let it get too crowded. It needs good air circulation, but it's a very pretty Texas native right here, Texas rock rose. So I'm almost to the north end of the west wall garden bed, which means we've covered the whole wall. And right in front of me is a sunshine ligustrum that I've pruned into a mini tree. This one sits right around 2.5 to 3 feet tall, and I've used it as a little umbrella for the juniper that's right in front of it, because it was surrounded by some rocks, again, that would heat up in the summer and overheat the ground, causing the roots basically to cook, and then the plant would end up getting some brown spots just from sheer exhaustion and getting cooked. I mean, you can't expect any plant to live through those conditions. So this is the summer umbrella that I put in place, and hopefully it will do what I need it to do for the next year or so until this maple can get big enough to take over, because even with this here, the juniper is still getting full sun, but it's just now protected from that intense afternoon heat. And this keeps the rocks from getting hot enough to heat up that soil to over 100 degrees with their radiant heat. So it's just kind of a compound effect of taking advantage of the little bit of shade that some plants can offer. This is the variegated privet that I just showed, and then this is the loropetalum, and this is where the mini sunshine ligustrum tree is. Right behind this maple, in between the sunshine ligustrum and the variegated privet, is this limelight firebush. And it's not at its peak right now. It's actually not even planted in its optimum spot, but I'm too in love with it to risk moving it. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous take on the firebush. It does not stay green in the winter, but what I will say is I feel like it used to be more variegated. It used to have another patch of a different color green in the middle, and I don't know if that's a seasonal patch or if the plant is reverting back to its original plain old green leaf, but because that will happen with some variegated plants, or if it's something that, you know, I don't know if it's going to come back as the plant ages, but hopefully I can share this garden again when everything is in bloom more. I will say, this part of Texas in August, a lot of plants just tend to get pooped out. This plant, though, is starting to come into season and starting to put on a show. It should be making buds within the next month, if not already. It's just in a lot of deep shade right now because it was planted among a bunch of other plants that obviously were going to overtake the area. And it's overcome the shade in the past and still put out blooms. So every year I think it gets a little bit weaker, but I'm going to clear out the canopy. I'm hoping that I can get to clear out the canopy soon of this variegated privet and to let enough light in to help give this firebush a boost soon. There's so many factors coming into play for this garden. I really don't know if I'll be able to, but fingers crossed that I'll be able to. Right behind me in this corner bench is a beautyberry that is a Texas native. I'm going to give a little view of that. I just planted it there last year. There were some Bradford pears back there several years ago that they were not healthy and they weren't doing good. The neighbor behind us had a Chinese tallow that had taken over everything for several years, and I'm just so glad about a year ago they took it down. But that's when I was able to finally put something back here, and I just chose to put another beautyberry because they are spreading abundantly in this yard. If anybody in this area needs a beautyberry, please hit me up because I have plenty. It's a great plant. The birds love it. This one is just now making the purple berry clusters. This is the north corner of the West Wall Gardens, which means we've reached the end of this garden tour. I hope you enjoyed this garden tour video, and please feel free to leave any questions or suggestions in the comment section below. And I hope you'll join me again next time on Garden Beauty.